Hey, I'm trying to do a quick video before Jason gets home and does some gross body function that I just have to edit out. So I wanted to show you this book that I made the other day. It is, I'm calling it my washi tape folio. I've been making some handmade washi tapes that I learned from another video. I'll put that link up when I find it. And she had a really cool book that she made to store it in, but I wanted something a little different, and this is what I came up with. I didn't want something, I had my washi tapes on spools, which was great. I loved it. It looked cool. I could see the tapes, find them easy, but some of them were kind of extra sticky, and they would end up sticking to themselves. So I knew I wanted to store them completely flat, where they weren't folded around a card, you know, where they might stick to themselves, or around a spool. So this is working out really good. I don't know what the exact measurements were. It started out life as a magazine cover, not like a magazine that you know, like a Better Homes and Garden. It was one of those community magazines that you get. They're, you know, it had a nice heavy big glossy cover, and it was it had, the inside sheets were just like newspaper sheets, and it was stapled down the middle, and it's just one of those, you know, it had local coupons and stuff. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, I had no use for the inside of it, but I kept the outside. I think I showed that in one of the other videos. But I kept the covers because they were good and heavy, and I started gessoing the covers, and then I thought, oh, I guess I should show the book before I start explaining it. This is the book. See? Washi tapes, parchment paper. That's all there is to it. Back to the cover. I gessoed it, and then while the gesso was still wet, I thought, well, I want to add some kind of texture. I wasn't really going for a leather look. If I had intentionally tried to make this look like leather, it would have been a disaster. This was totally accidental. But I had some wax paper that looked kind of like this, only with a lot more gesso on it, that I use when I'm gessoing sheets. You know, I put it in between sheets in a journal or whatever, and it ends up all ooky, and I just use it over and over and over until it really just falls apart. So I thought I would use that on the magazine covers to add a little bit of texture, and also to kind of give it a little bit more weight, you know, to kind of reinforce it. So I wadded up the wax paper, and then I gessoed it onto the magazine cover that had wet gesso already on it, and then just, you know, lots of gesso, lots of mushing around. Here's what I learned. Wrinkles are really good. You want lots of wrinkles. Bubbles, no good. If you get bubbles underneath, it is going to wreak havoc later, because they're going to rip open, and then you have to fix it. Okay, so just trust me, when you're doing this kind of, you know, putting a thin tissue paper over heavier paper for some texture, make sure you get all the bubbles out. This is what happened right here, which, okay, granted, it ended up looking really, really cool, but that was just a big bubble mistake. Got the covers done. Got them all gessoed, let it dry, and here was my second mistake, or I don't know if it was my second, one of many. We won't call it a mistake, we'll call it a learning opportunity. My second learning opportunity. I thought, okay, it's covered with gesso, it's ready to go. I'll start putting stuff on it, I'll start coloring it the way that I want. I really should have at that point put some Mod Podge or some kind of a sealer on it. I didn't, and I should have, because, you know, even though the gesso was a really great primer and it took the ink just fine and everything, if I had gone ahead and sealed it with the Mod Podge, I think then I would have been able to deal with some of the bubbles easier. Better, whatever, you know, I could have ripped open a bubble if I found it and then glued it down. Whereas I didn't do that, anytime I my ink pad snagged a bubble and it ripped. Then I had to go back with gesso, and it was just a mess. So trust me on that. Even though if you do this, if you try something like this and you've got your gessoed surface ready to go, you might want to slap a sealer on there, like a Mod Podge or something, just to make sure that everything is stuck down tight, and that all your bubbles are out. Because, yeah, that was kind of a pain. And I colored it. All I used to color it were these 3 things: a distress pad in Vintage Photo, and walnut stain, and then a Marvy ink pad in brown. And that's it. Re-inkers for these because I used quite a bit of ink. But it did great. It, blended well. Used my handy dandy paper towel to blend it. Some of the areas, I don't know. I don't know why it picked certain areas to stick differently. I don't know why it did what it did. That's the walnut ink. It ended up making it kind of black in places. But I used it over the whole thing. It didn't do it over the whole thing. It's really odd. It kind of took on a life of its own. And it's the craziest thing, y'all. This feels like leather. It's odd, but it does. It feels like leather. Once it was all done, here was another mistake. I was in a hurry, because I'm always in a hurry, even though there's really no reason for it. I'm just anxious to get on to the next thing or the next step. The ink was pretty much dry, but not completely. These distress inks, they have some work time to them. They'll stay wet for quite a while. I should have dried it completely and hit it with the heat gun, to make sure. But I didn't. Instead, I got the Mod Podge back out, and, I'd learned my lesson once about not sealing it, so I wasn't about to make that same mistake again. So I started slapping some Mod Podge on it. Ink was wet, Mod Podge was wet. They came together, and they did heinous things. It was bad. You can still see some inky, Mod Podge-y brush strokes in there, and that really just kind of torqued me. But it's my mistake. So, I just made the best of it, did the best I could, but next time around I would make sure my ink is dry before I go trying to seal it again. And I sealed it with a matte finish, Mod Podge, just a light coat, and then I went over it and waxed it with this Daddy Vans all natural unscented beeswax furniture polish. And I've just started using this on some furniture and stuff that I paint with chalk paint, and it's clear. It's got a goober in it. Let me get that. It's fuzz. Okay, it's clear, so you can use it on any color. It is 100% natural. There are no solvents in it, which I really liked because I was redoing one of our cutting boards in the kitchen that's made out of wood, and it really needed to be waxed or something, but you can't use a wax with a solvent on it because it's going to come in contact with food. So this one was good. You can put this on surfaces that come in contact with food, and it's just a great wax. That's what I used on here. You just rub it on and then get a clean cloth and just kind of buff it, and it just gives it this nice sheen. So turned out pretty good, huh? This is a metal thingy that was in with all my other metal thingies. I don't know what it is. It says Union Oil Company of California, and I got it probably at a flea market and with a bunch of other rusty metal junk that I tend to buy. For the inside of the book, I really wished that I'd had like a nice piece of suede to put in for the lining, but I didn't. All I had was this muslin, which I thought would just work just fine. So I put that down. Okay, here's yet another mistake, or whatever I called it before. Again, ink wasn't completely dry. And I put, okay, here's what I did. I did like the stupidest thing ever. I took the piece of muslin that I'd cut for this, and I thought, well, I know, I'll just soak it in some like white glue and water, you know, like you're making your own fabric stiffener. I'll just do that, and then I'll just lay it down and give it wrinkles and then let it dry. Yeah, okay, that didn't work. It didn't work because the surface was too slippery. You know, I had waxed it, it had a nice sheen on it, it had been sealed, and, you know, white glue like Elmer's doesn't really like to stick to, well, anything really, but especially a slick surface. So that wasn't working. So I put my piece of muslin, I put it in the sink. I, you know, squeezed out all of the excess glue and water, rinsed it out really, really good. Of course, and I'm in a big hurry to finish it because I don't even know why, but I was anxious. So I thought, well, I'm embarrassed to say this. Okay, I'll say it. I'll just dry it by throwing it in the oven for a few minutes. I've painted fabric and then put it in the oven, and then it does this really cool thing. So, you know, I thought I can do that. I'll just watch it. So I put it on my craft cookie sheet, stuck it in the oven. You know, it wasn't up high, maybe on 250. And, of course, went on about my business. And then I figured when I saw the smoke come out of the oven that it was probably ready. And it was. It was ready. It wasn't completely dry, but it was dry enough to work with. So, yeah, you don't necessarily have to do these things exactly the way I do them. I'm just telling you what I did so that you'll know what not to do. Okay? Okay. Put the fabric on here, went after it with some Mod Podge. The ink underneath on the inside of the book covers was not completely dry, so of course, again, it mixed with the Mod Podge and showed through the fabric, but I, you know, really didn't care because it's the liner in it. I did want it to look kind of worn and old and ooky like the rest of the book. And this right here, this weird square is here because I put some duct tape on the inside of the cover before I sewed this on, just to give it some more weight, you know, so that the threads wouldn't pull through and the ink doesn't stick to the duct tape, you know, because it's slippery. So I've got this weird square. You can see I did the same thing right here. There's duct tape in the binding, so that part didn't get dyed by the ink, which I think is kind of entertaining. It's almost like science. But that's all that's involved in the cover. Lots of duct tape for, you know, reinforcing, and then just make every mistake you can possibly make, and then this is what you'll end up with. Cool, huh? The pages, and to be honest, if I'd had enough wax paper, that's what I would have used, but I was out. So I had a roll of parchment paper in my kitchen. Works exactly the same as wax paper. You know, the tapes will stick to it, but they'll peel right up when I'm ready to use them. So I used the parchment paper for the sheets. Cut a big sheet, folded it in half, and then reinforced each one with duct tape because I knew I wanted to do a stitch binding, and, you know, it would just rip right through that parchment. So it's all duct taped where the binding is. And I made 2 signatures with just random pieces of parchment, kind of what I had left. And then they are stitched to the binding with the crisscross stitch, like that. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. And I could show you how to do this, but you would probably want to come to my house and shoot me by the time I was done, because I just really kind of had to fumble my way through it, and I had instructions. But you can just Google this, crisscross stitch bookbinding, and you can probably find some really good, clear instructions that will not make you homicidal like I would. So that's all that was. And I made a little template to punch my holes. That's what I used right there, so that everything was punched and lined up right. But, you know, it's really easy to do. And I have washi tapes made from painter's tape. that was gessoed first, but I mean that one worked out really well actually. And then some are masking tape, and some are this weird paper tape that I had. So, and I'm excited I have all these blank pages to fill up with washi tape, so I'm actually making some more today. I want to show you too kind of the beginnings of my next project, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is because I don't really know exactly what it is, but it's going to be great. I just know it. Okay, here's my supplies I'm collecting for it. Food packaging. All kinds of food packaging, like cardboard boxes and pouches and doodahs and all that. And it's going to be a book of some kind, probably not a journal, maybe an artist. Oh, I said I wasn't going to tell you. Okay, well, obviously I just changed my mind and I can do that. So I don't know exactly what this is going to end up looking like, or exactly what it's going to be, what its function will be, but I'm just loving all the really, really bright colors of the food packaging. And I do know one thing for sure, I'm not going to cover the packaging. Whatever I make, I'm going to leave the all of the pictures, the graphics, everything exposed. And the coolness of it will be in the thing that is itself and in the embellishments that I use, because I'm only going to use food packaging. There won't be any scrapbook paper or anything like that. So that's going to force me to get really creative with how I can decorate it and make it cool with just these kinds of supplies. So, okay, that's it for now, I think. And I'll do another video later. I have been watching lots of YouTube videos, and I have discovered that I'm doing it all wrong. Apparently, at the beginning, I'm supposed to say something like, "Hi, everyone." Okay, that will never, ever happen, okay? Just so you know, that will never happen. Perky people do that. I am not perky. I'm supposed to introduce myself and then tell you that I'm with so-and-so company or so-and-so website. Well, that's not going to happen either, at least unless till like so-and-so company decides to hire me, then I'll do it. I'm also supposed to have great big honkin' thick acrylic nails. This I know for sure because everybody has it. I don't know how they craft with those things. I used to wear acrylic nails all the time. They were great for sitting at home doing this, you know, nothing. Or you use them as tools. It's a great screwdriver, but then they don't last. So yes, I have failed there as well. I have also failed at identifying the paper collections that I use. I have failed at this because I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what a paper collection or what collection they're talking about when they say this is from the so-and-so collection. I guess it means, is it one of those like pads of... Okay, my battery went dead while I was ranting about how I don't know what a paper collection is. Yeah, I was just saying that I don't know what that is. I don't understand that. I don't, you know, I buy scrapbook paper all the time off the clearance rack. And I don't really buy matchy-matchy stuff because that kind of, you know, I love the way it looks. I love looking at it. But I like the challenge of making do with what you have. And, you know, finding stuff that goes together. So I have, you know, I have the bathroom trash can collection. This is from the bathroom trash can collection. And that's about as good as it's going to get from me, okay? So I'm sorry that I don't identify where I get everything from. I will try to remember which dumpster or I pulled it out of or which thrift store I got it at. Maybe that will help. And this is the part where I do that awkward ending, the end.